The battlefield was silent after the storm of fire. Smoke curled into the gray sky. Broken ships lay scattered across the sand, and the air smelled of burning metal. Among the ruins, a man in worn combat armor pushed aside rubble with his gloved hands. His breathing was heavy, his face streaked with dirt, but his eyes burned with determination. He had survived many battles, but nothing prepared him for what he was about to find. His name was Daniel, a widowed father who carried the weight of loss with every step. He had buried his wife years ago and raised his 2 young children alone. Now, as the galaxy's endless wars swallowed worlds, he tried only to keep them safe. Yet survival was never simple in a war where humans were scattered among stronger alien powers. As he cleared more sand, his hand touched something smooth and cold. He stopped, narrowed his eyes, and brushed carefully. The shape of a face appeared beneath the dirt, skin shimmering in a faint emerald glow. He froze, his heart hammering in his chest. It was not human. It was an alien woman, buried up to her neck, her silver-white hair tangled with dirt and ash. Her eyes were wide with fear, her lips trembling as if she had been waiting for death. Daniel's children stood a few steps behind him, clutching each other's hands. They were frightened, but they did not look away. They had learned that war showed many kinds of cruelty. The girl in the ground whispered, her voice weak and broken, "They've left me here because I cannot bear life." Her words carried shame, despair, and the weight of punishment no living being deserved. Daniel understood at once. She had been condemned by her own people, not because of a crime, but because she was sterile. In some alien cultures, life was sacred to the point of cruelty. A woman who could not give birth was seen as useless, cursed, or worse, a danger to the future. They buried her alive, leaving her to die in silence. Daniel's jaw tightened. His people knew loss, but never cruelty like this. Sterility was no curse, only fate. To him, what he saw was not weakness but injustice. He knelt beside her, brushing away more dirt with strong hands. His children gasped softly as they realized what he meant to do. "Dad." "She's not human," one of them whispered. "I know," he answered firmly, his voice low but steady. "But she's alive." The alien woman's green skin glistened under the dim light, streaked with tears. She tried to speak again, but her throat was dry, her strength fading. She expected him to walk away, as others had. She expected nothing but silence, because mercy was rarer than cruelty in her world. But Daniel's eyes held a fierce fire. He dug faster, ignoring the pain in his muscles. Every handful of dirt he removed was a strike against the cruelty that had condemned her. His gloves tore on sharp stones. Blood welled from his knuckles, but he did not stop. The children stepped closer, kneeling beside him, their small hands helping to push sand away. The alien woman's breath quickened as she felt the weight around her loosen. For the first time, a spark of hope lit in her eyes. The wind howled across the empty field. The wreckage of ships stood like tombstones, but Daniel's focus was on freeing her before it was too late. He had seen enough death. He would not allow his children to watch someone die helpless in the dirt. Finally, with one last pull, he freed her shoulders. She coughed violently, her body shaking as air rushed back into her lungs. Daniel steadied her, his hand strong against her back. She looked at him, confused, almost afraid. "Why?" she whispered. Daniel met her eyes without hesitation. "Because no one deserves to die like this." Her tears fell harder. No one from her own kind had offered her such words. No one had even looked at her as more than a failure. Yet here was a human, a stranger, digging her free with his children beside him, as if her life was worth something, as if she mattered. He pulled her fully from the sand and wrapped his arm around her weak frame. She could hardly stand, but he did not let go. His children stared at her with wide eyes, their fears slowly melting into something else: curiosity, even sympathy. "We need to move," Daniel said, scanning the horizon. "This place won't stay empty for long." The alien woman leaned against him, trembling. She still did not understand why he saved her. To her, humans were fragile creatures. Scattered and broken by wars they never started. Yet this man's grip felt stronger than iron, his choice more defiant than any weapon. For Daniel, it was simple. He was a father, and he knew what it meant to protect life, even if it wasn't his own kind. He could not abandon someone buried. For being different, not when his children watched him. Not when mercy was the only thing left that made them human. As they walked away from the battlefield, the alien woman cast one last look at the hole where she had been left to die. It was no longer her grave. It was the place where she had been reborn, not by her people, but by the hands of a human father who chose compassion over cruelty. And though none of them knew it yet, this act of mercy would change the course of more than just their lives. The night fell over the wasteland like a heavy blanket. Daniel guided his children and the rescued alien woman away from the battlefield, searching for shelter among the broken ruins of old structures. The air was cold, and the sound of distant engines reminded him that patrols still searched the area. Survival depended on silence and caution. The woman's steps were weak. Her body trembled as if every muscle resisted moving after being buried so long. Daniel noticed her shiver, so he stopped, unfastened the outer layer of his torn armor, and draped it over her shoulders. She stared at the gesture as though it was something impossible. "You will freeze if you don't cover yourself," he said simply. Her lips parted, but no words came. She could not understand this man. Her people had condemned her for being sterile, calling her a burden. Yet here stood a human, dirty, exhausted, wounded, choosing to give her warmth instead of letting her collapse. His daughter, the smaller of the two, walked close to the alien woman and offered her a piece of stale ration bread. The alien hesitated, then accepted it, her emerald hands trembling. She took the smallest bite, her glowing eyes softening as she looked at the little girl. For the first time in her memory, someone had treated her like she was more than a failure. Daniel kept his eyes on the horizon. He had not yet asked her name. He wasn't sure if it was safe. Trust had to grow slowly in a world filled with betrayal. But as he watched her stumble, he knew he could not carry her forever. When they finally reached the shelter of an abandoned hangar, Daniel cleared a corner, lit a small fire with scrap fuel, and told his children to rest. The alien woman sat silently near the warmth, her hair reflecting silver against the firelight. She hugged herself as though unsure if she belonged in this circle. At last, Daniel spoke. "Who are you?" Her eyes lifted, the flames flickering in their depths. "My name is Leora." Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "I was once daughter of the House of Victories, until they decided my womb was cursed." Daniel frowned. He did not know her people, but he knew cruelty when he heard it. "They buried you alive because of that?" Her throat tightened, but she nodded. "Sterile ones are seen as shadows. We are erased." Daniel's children shifted uncomfortably. They had lost their mother, but never had they imagined someone punished for not creating life. To them, every life was sacred, no matter how small or broken. Daniel leaned forward, his face lit by the fire. "Listen, Leora, I don't care about their rules. You're alive, and that is enough." Her eyes widened. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Her own kind had judged her worth by her body's ability to bear children. But this human, this widowed father spoke as if her existence alone mattered. She could not explain the weight those words lifted from her chest. Still, doubt clung to her. "Why risk yourself? If they find me with you, they will punish you too. They will not forgive you for saving me." Daniel gave a tired smile. "They can punish me all they want. My children will know what's right. That matters more than their judgment." The fire crackled. His son, braver than before, finally asked, "Will she stay with us, Dad?" Daniel glanced at Leora. She was fragile, weak, but something about her presence filled the ruined hangar with a strange calm. He saw not just a woman saved from cruelty, but someone who carried a story his children could learn from. Yes. Daniel answered firmly. She stays. The children lay down beside the fire, slowly drifting to sleep. Leora sat in silence, her mind torn between gratitude and fear. Every word Daniel spoke contradicted everything she had been taught about. Humans, her people had called them reckless, fragile, unworthy. Yet here was a man stronger than any she had known, not because of his muscles or armor, but because of his mercy. As the night deepened, Leora's gaze lingered on him. He sat upright, hand resting on a makeshift weapon, eyes scanning the shadows. For danger. He protected his children like a shield, and now, without even knowing why, he extended that shield to her. She wondered if she deserved it. A sound outside broke her thoughts. Metallic footsteps echoed faintly in the distance. Daniel stiffened, raising his weapon. Patrols. He motioned for silence, his eyes sharp. Leora's heart raced. If her people discovered her alive, they would drag her back to the earth and bury her again. And this time they would not allow a human to interfere. The children stirred, frightened. Daniel held a finger to his lips, signaling them to stay quiet. His other hand touched the dirt floor, steady, ready. The footsteps faded after long minutes, leaving the hangar in uneasy silence. Daniel lowered his weapon slowly, his shoulders tense. He exhaled, then turned to the fire again. Leora looked at him, a quiet realization forming in her heart. This man was not just a rescuer. He was a father, a guardian, and perhaps something even her people had forgotten existed. Hope. She whispered softly, almost to herself. Perhaps the curse is not mine. Perhaps it is theirs. Daniel did not answer, but in his eyes, there was agreement. And in that moment, Leora began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life could have meaning beyond the grave her people had chosen for her. The morning light slipped through cracks in the broken hangar roof, painting streaks of gold across the dusty floor. Daniel was already awake, sharpening a piece of metal into a blade. His children stirred beside the embers of the fire, while Leora sat quietly, her emerald skin glowing faintly in the early light. She still could not understand why she was there. Alive, sitting among humans instead of lying forgotten beneath the sand. Daniel noticed her watching him. "We move soon," he said in a calm voice. "This place is not safe. Patrols pass through here." Leora lowered her eyes. "You should not carry me further. I am a burden. If they catch me with you, they will kill us all." Daniel studied her face, then gave a short laugh, though it carried no joy. "A burden? No. A burden is watching someone die when you could have saved them. I will not teach my children that kind of lesson." His son, still groggy with sleep, rubbed his eyes. "Dad, where will we go?" Daniel's gaze hardened. "Far from here, maybe beyond their territory. There are human settlements hidden in the outer regions, but the road will not be easy." Leora's chest tightened. She should have felt relief at the idea of escaping, but instead there was fear. Not for herself, but for him and his children. She had seen how ruthless her people could be. If they learned a human had stolen away a condemned woman, they would unleash their wrath without hesitation. As they prepared to leave, Daniel handed her a small flask of water. Her hands shook as she accepted it. No one had ever given her kindness so freely. She drank slowly, each drop feeling like more than water. It felt like life itself. The children walked beside her as they left the hangar, their small voices breaking the silence of the wasteland. They asked her questions about her skin, her hair, her eyes. At first, she hesitated to answer, afraid of their curiosity. But their innocence softened her heart. She spoke quietly, explaining that her people were born with colors that marked their houses. Hers was emerald, the color of life. Yet she was the one they called lifeless, The little girl reached for Leora's hand. "But you are alive." "That means they were wrong." Those words struck deeper than any blade. Leora's throat tightened, and for a moment she could not respond. She had spent years believing she was cursed, unworthy, a shadow. But this child's simple truth cut through all the lies she had carried. By midday, they reached the edge of the ruined city. Metal skeletons of towers stretched into the sky, broken and charred. The silence was heavy, broken only by the wind, whistling through the hollow frames. Daniel led carefully, eyes sharp for danger. Suddenly, a distant roar echoed across the ruins. Leora froze. She knew that sound. It was not a patrol, it was worse. Her people used beasts, massive creatures, bred for war, to hunt those who tried to escape punishment. Her pulse quickened, fear flooding her body. Daniel noticed her panic. "What is it?" "They have released a hound," she whispered. "It will find us. It never fails." His children looked at him with wide eyes. Daniel gripped his weapon tighter. He had fought soldiers, machines, and starvation. But now he faced something unknown. He saw the terror in Leora's eyes and understood this was no empty threat. The ground trembled slightly as the sound grew nearer. Leora's legs weakened. "You should leave me. If it smells me alive, it will come. If I die, it may stop." Daniel turned sharply toward her, his voice firm and unyielding. "No, I didn't dig you out of the ground to throw you back to death." He pulled his children closer, scanning the ruins. "We move." Now, they ran through the broken streets, boots kicking up dust, the roar behind them growing louder. The children struggled to keep pace, but Daniel lifted his daughter into his arms without slowing, his son clinging to his side. Leora stumbled, her body too weak, but Daniel grabbed her wrist and pulled her forward. At last, they ducked into the shadow of a collapsed building, crouching low as the sound drew near. Leora's chest heaved, her heart pounding like a drum. She had seen these hounds tear apart soldiers in seconds. She could not understand how this human father remained so calm. The beast appeared, a towering creature with black scales, glowing red eyes, and jaws lined with teeth. Its roar shook the ruins, and its nose sniffed the air, searching. Daniel held his children close, pressing a finger to his lips. Leora tried to control her breathing, tears forming in her eyes. If it found them, there would be no escape. Hound stepped closer, its heavy claws scraping against stone. Leora's entire body trembled. She had been condemned to death once. She could not face it again. Yet Daniel's hand remained steady on her arm, his eyes sharp, unafraid. He whispered so softly only she could hear, "Stay still, trust me." For the first time in her life, Leora wanted to believe in someone's strength more than her own. Fear. The beast prowled, its breath hot against the air, searching for life among the ruins. Daniel crouched, ready to strike if it came closer, even though his weapon seemed useless against such a monster. The silence stretched, thick with danger. Then, slowly, the beast turned away, its roar fading as it moved deeper into the city. Leora's body collapsed with relief, tears spilling down her face. She looked at Daniel, her voice shaking. You are not afraid." He exhaled slowly, eyes still fixed on the shadows. "Of course I'm afraid, but fear doesn't decide what I do. My children do. Saving you does." In that moment, Leora realized something terrifying and beautiful. The strength of this man was not in his weapons or his armor. It was in his will, in his refusal to abandon life no matter the danger. Her people had buried her because they thought she was useless. But this human had shown her that even in weakness, there was worth. And for the first time since she had been condemned, she began to believe she might have a place in this world again. The ruins grew quieter as the beast's roar faded into the distance, but Daniel kept his weapon ready. He knew silence was often more dangerous than noise. His children clung to his side, still shaken. Liara sat on a broken slab of concrete, her body trembling, though she tried to hide it. "You've faced that thing before?" Daniel asked, his eyes scanning the street. Liara shook her head slowly. "No one survives it. We are taught from childhood that when the hounds come, it is the end. They are bred to kill without mercy." Daniel studied her pale, frightened face, and yet it walked away. Her emerald eyes flickered with confusion. "It should have smelled me. It should have attacked." Daniel's son spoke softly. "Maybe it was scared of Dad." The boy's words brought a small smile to Daniel's lips, but Liara looked at him differently now. She had believed humans weak, unremarkable in the grand scale of the galaxy. But the way this man stood against death itself unsettled her. He was no soldier, no noble, yet he carried a strength that even a beast could not break. They traveled deeper into the ruins, careful to stay hidden. The shattered city stretched endlessly, with shadows that whispered of lost lives. The children grew tired, their small steps slowing. Daniel lifted his daughter again, his muscles straining but his stride steady. Liara walked close beside him, her mind in conflict. She wanted to speak, but fear of saying the wrong thing kept her silent. Finally, she gathered the courage. "Why do you keep risking so much for me? I bring nothing but danger." Daniel glanced at her, his face rough but calm. "Because I couldn't explain to my children why we left you behind. They need to know life is worth saving, no matter whose it is." The words struck her deeper than she expected. Her people had told her she had no value. This man insisted she did. The difference between those beliefs tore her heart apart. As the day stretched on, they found an underground passage, half collapsed but still holding. Daniel led them down into the darkness, lighting a small torch. The walls were lined with alien symbols, faded and broken. Liara traced them with her fingers, her face softening. "This was once a sanctuary," she whispered. "A place of healing, before the wars." Daniel looked around, noting the broken beds and shattered tools. His children explored carefully, their curiosity outweighing their fear. For the first time since the rescue, the place felt almost safe. They settled there for the night. Daniel built another small fire, and the children curled together under a blanket. Liara sat across from him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She studied him for a long time before speaking. "You are unlike anyone I have known. My people measure worth by bloodlines, strength, or power. You measure it by something else." Daniel poked the fire with a stick. "Worth isn't given by birth. It's proven by what you do when it matters." She lowered her head. "If that is true, then I have no worth. I was condemned for failing the only thing they valued." His eyes locked onto hers, sharp and unyielding. "That's their mistake, not yours." Liara's chest tightened. She had never been defended so strongly. Even in whispers, no one had spoken on her side. The heat of the fire seemed to fade compared to the warmth in his words. Silence stretched between them until she finally asked, "And what of you, Daniel? What gives you worth?" He looked at his children sleeping peacefully. His voice softened. "Them. Everything I do is for them. Without them, I'd be nothing." For the first time, Liara saw the wound hidden in his heart. He carried love like a shield, but also pain. He had lost someone, his wife, and every choice he made now was to protect what remained. She understood then his strength came from loss, transformed into something unbreakable. The sound of footsteps interrupted her thoughts. Daniel was on his feet in an instant, weapon raised. Liara's breath caught in her throat. From the shadows of the passage, figures emerged, soldiers clad in dark armor, their helmets glowing with the mark of victories. Her blood froze. Her people had found them. The leader stepped forward, his voice cold. "We are here for the condemned. Step aside, human. You have no part in this." Daniel shifted his stance, placing himself between the soldiers and Liara. His children stirred awake, frightened by the voices. Leora's heart pounded painfully. She knew these men. They would not show mercy, not even to Daniel's children. She rose slowly, her voice shaking. "Please, do not fight them. If I go, they may let you live." Daniel turned his head slightly, his jaw tight. "And if I let them take you, what lesson do my children learn? That we hand people to death to save ourselves?" The soldiers raised their weapons. Daniel's grip tightened on his own blade. His children clung to each other, eyes wide with terror. Leora's entire body trembled, torn between surrender and the desperate hope that somehow this human could defy the impossible again. The leader barked a command. "Stand aside, human. She is cursed. She must return to the earth." Daniel's voice rang through the chamber, steady and fierce. "Over my dead body." The soldiers advanced, and in that moment, Leora realized something undeniable. This man would fight an army for her, not because she was strong or useful, but because she was alive, and she had never been more afraid of losing someone she had only just begun to trust. The chamber grew tense, the firelight flickering against the walls. As the soldiers stepped closer, their armor clinked with each movement, their glowing visors fixed on Leora. Daniel stood firm in front of her, weapon raised, his stance wide and unshakable. His children pressed against the wall, fear etched into their small faces. The leader pointed a blade at Leora. "She belongs to us. Move aside, human. This is no concern of your kind." Daniel's voice was calm, but it carried a dangerous edge. "You buried her alive because she could not give you children. That's not justice. That's cruelty. I won't let you take her." The soldiers laughed, a harsh, metallic sound. To them, humans were weak, scattered creatures who barely clung to survival. That one dared to speak against them was an insult. One soldier stepped forward, swinging his blade. Daniel blocked with his crude weapon, sparks flying. The force of the blow sent pain through his arm, but he did not fall. His children gasped, watching their father stand against armored warriors far stronger than him. Leora cried out, her voice breaking. "Stop, they will kill you." But Daniel pushed forward, shoving the soldier back. "Run if you want," he shouted. "But I don't run. Not when someone's life is on the line." The soldiers surged as one, their boots pounding against the floor. Daniel fought like a cornered beast, his blade flashing in the firelight. He ducked under strikes, parried blows, and lashed out with desperate strength. His armor was battered, his hands bloody, but his eyes never wavered. Leora stood frozen, horror and awe mixing inside her. She had seen warriors trained for decades crumble before soldiers like these. Yet this man, this human father, moved as if the fear of death could not touch him. One soldier lunged at him from the side, but Daniel twisted, slamming the hilt of his weapon into the soldier's helmet. The man staggered, crashing into the wall. Another swung low, aiming for Daniel's legs, but Daniel leapt back, kicking hard against the attacker's chest plate. The impact echoed through the chamber, but he was only one man. For every strike he landed, another came in return. A blade sliced across his arm, leaving a trail of blood. His breathing grew harsh, his movements slower. The children cried out. But Daniel did not stop. Leora's heart shattered as she watched. He was bleeding, exhausted, yet still refusing to step aside. Her people called her cursed, unworthy, a shadow. But to him, she was worth fighting an army. She could not stand. While he destroyed himself for her, her body trembled, fear chaining her to the ground. But then she remembered his words. Worth isn't given by birth. It's proven by what you do when it matters. She rose to her feet. The soldiers sneered at her. "Stay silent, Shadow. You have no place here." But Leora's voice rang through the chamber, trembling but loud. "You are wrong. I have a place, and this man has shown me what it is." The soldiers turned, distracted for a moment. Daniel seized the chance, driving his blade into one soldier's chest plate. The man fell, his armor clattering against the stone. The others roared in anger. Daniel stumbled, blood dripping from his wounds. Leora rushed to his side, grabbing a fallen weapon from the ground. Her hands shook, but she held it firmly, standing beside him. "You'll be killed," Daniel whispered harshly. "Then I will die fighting," she answered, her voice stronger than it had ever been. The children's eyes widened as they saw her stand next to their father. No longer a victim, but a fighter. The soldiers advanced again. Daniel and Leora stood side by side, blades ready. The clash was fierce. Sparks flew as steel met steel, the chamber echoing with the sound of battle. Daniel struck low, forcing his enemies to retreat. Leora moved awkwardly, but with determination, blocking a strike that would have cut Daniel down. Her arms burned with the effort, but she did not fall. The leader roared in fury, charging at Daniel. Their blades clashed with a force that sent vibrations through the chamber. Daniel staggered but gritted his teeth, refusing to let go. Leora leapt forward, slashing at the leader's side. The blow left a dent in his armor, forcing him back. For the first time, the soldiers hesitated. A condemned woman and a human father had stood against them, and not one had yet claimed victory. The leader growled, raising his weapon again, but before he could strike, the sound of engines thundered above. The ceiling shook, dust raining down. Both sides froze, looking upward. Daniel's heart pounded. Another patrol? Or something worse? Leora's eyes widened as she recognized the sound. It was not her people. It was heavier, sharper, an engine used by another faction. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Their orders were clear: retrieve the condemned. But a greater threat had just arrived. With curses muttered through their helmets, they began to retreat into the shadows, their leader glaring back at Daniel. "This is not the end, human," he spat. "She belongs to death, and death will claim her." Their footsteps faded, leaving the chamber heavy with silence once more. Daniel collapsed against the wall, his chest heaving, blood dripping from his wounds. His children rushed to him, their small hands clutching his arms. Leora knelt beside him, her own body trembling from fear and exhaustion. "You fought them," she whispered, disbelief in her voice. "You fought them all, for me." Daniel gave a tired smile, his voice hoarse. "For you, for them, for what's right." Her tears fell freely now, but they were not only of sorrow. For the first time in her life, she felt something more powerful than shame or fear. She felt worth. She felt alive. And though danger still surrounded them, she knew one truth: she would not let this man fight alone again. The chamber was silent after the soldiers left, only the crackle of the dying fire filling the air. Daniel leaned heavily against the wall, his breath ragged, blood soaking through torn armor. His children clung to him, their faces pale with fear. Leora stayed beside him, one hand pressed against his wound as if her trembling touch alone could hold him together. "You should rest," she whispered. Daniel shook his head weakly. "No. We can't stay. They'll come back, stronger." The children's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, please, you're hurt." He smiled faintly at them. "I've been hurt before. But I'm still here. And I'll stay here as long as I need to." Leora felt her throat tighten. This man was bleeding, exhausted, yet his spirit was unbroken. She had been condemned for being sterile, for being powerless. But now she realized power was not in bloodlines or in what one's body could create. It was in will. It was in love. And Daniel carried both stronger than anyone she had ever known. The sound of engines still rumbled above, shaking dust from the ceiling. Daniel tried to rise, but Leora pushed him back gently. "No, this time. Let me stand for you." He looked at her, surprised, but her emerald eyes no longer held fear. They burned with something new purpose. When the engines faded, silence returned. For now, there was no enemy in sight. Leora helped Daniel to his feet, her arm steady around him. They walked out of the passage together, his children trailing close behind. The ruin stretched endlessly, but the air felt lighter. Daniel limped, each step heavy, but he did not stop. Leora matched his pace, her body weary but her heart alive with a strength she had never known. As the sun set over the broken city, painting the sky in red and gold, they reached the edge of the wasteland. In the distance, far beyond the ruined towers, there was green, a stretch of land that looked untouched by war. Daniel's children gasped, pointing, "Look, grass!" It was rare to see anything alive growing here. Leora's heart lifted at the sight. It was as if the universe itself had given them a sign life still existed, even in places forgotten. They camped by the edge, the children laughing softly as they touched the grass with wonder. Daniel sat with his back against a rock, his wounds bound by strips of cloth. Leora stayed close, watching the firelight dance across his face. He caught her gaze and gave a tired smile. "You're stronger than you think." She lowered her eyes. "I was told I had no worth, that without children I was nothing. And do you still believe that?" he asked quietly. Her eyes lifted again, glowing softly in the firelight. "No, not anymore. You showed me that living is enough, that protecting others is enough." Daniel nodded slowly, his hand resting on his son's shoulder as the boy leaned against him. "That's all that matters, what we do, not what they say." Silence settled, comfortable now. The children drifted to sleep, curled together under blankets. Leora and Daniel remained awake, listening to the night. After a long pause, Leora spoke again, her voice softer than the wind. "You risked everything for me. I don't understand why. You could have walked away. You could have saved your children the danger." Daniel's eyes grew distant, his gaze on the stars above. "I've lost someone I loved before. I know what it's like to bury a part of your heart. When I saw you in that ground, I couldn't let my children see me walk away. I couldn't let them believe life has no value." Her chest ached at his words. For years she had carried shame, believing herself unworthy of love or even survival. Now she realized she had been wrong. She was alive, and because of this man, she was free. She reached out, her hand brushing his gently. He did not pull away. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, something unspoken passed between them, trust, respect, and perhaps something deeper waiting to grow. The night stretched on. The fire dimmed, the stars burned brighter. Leora leaned against his shoulder, her heart steady for the first time in her life. The next morning, as the sun rose, Daniel stood tall again, his wounds bound and his strength slowly returning. His children laughed as they ran through the grass, their voices echoing with hope. Leora stood beside him, her silver hair glowing in the sunlight. She turned to him, her voice strong. "Where you go, I will go. I am not condemned anymore. Not while I stand with you." Daniel looked at her, a faint smile on his worn face. "Then you're part of this family now." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of joy. She had been buried for being sterile, condemned to die without love or purpose. But a human father had dug her free, given her a home, and shown her a truth greater than her people's laws. Worth was not measured by birth. Worth was proven by life, by love, by courage. And in that moment, under the rising sun, Leora knew. She had found what she had been denied all her life. She had found a place where she belonged,